bond discussion. Suppose we have covered last week, there is bond discussion. Word, keyword. Suppose.
I have a question
Mhm.
about the portion of restructuring costs related to asset write-downs. I'm not quite sure how you justify an asset write-down. Isn't that more fair value accounting? Isn't the
Oh.
asset depreciated if
Okay.
it's,
See, that's a good point. In other words, asset write-down. Okay. Asset write-down, and that is one source of restructure the contingent liability from restructuring expense. That's a good question. In other words, I gave you an example of how they create this, and one source we mentioned that was when and how much and what type of a if I can. Asset write down. FASB 121. Friend of mine now Toronto, is in Toronto. He was at the Rutgers campus. We share same first name. Is Sue also. So back then they were really confused. Which Sue? Really nice fellow. I miss him a lot. I see him once a year in annual conference. The question we asked was this: asset write down. These guys, they don't have to. Whenever they have a choice, some guy took only a voluntary asset write down, some don't. So we examined that issue. Before we answer that question, going back to your question, asset write no. I'm getting better now. See, asset write down, amount of asset write down will be there. Here you have a fair market value of asset. Fair market value of your asset. And here, future expected future cash flow from this asset. In other words, using this asset, this is how much cash you can bring in the future. If this is the case, in other words, current value of the asset, market value of the asset, is more than sum of future cash flow from using this asset, then we say this has been impaired. And you have to add down the difference between this and this, because the maximum benefit you will get using this asset is this guy, not this guy, right? This is the maximum. So the difference between this and this has to be written down on your book, and that is asset write down. It's different from asset write off. Asset write off means you are taking that asset off from your book. In this case, when this happens, if this is the case, this happens when certain conditions are reached. What condition would be?
I've seen this.
but You don't consider the book value of
Well,
the
you're right.
asset at all?
You write down the book.
You're right, taking the book down, the fair value.
In other
Well,
words,
later on, this.
But I mean, you're comparing fair market to the,
Yeah, but the difference between this, later on, you will make a depreciation expense, a credit accumulate depreciation. And this will bring down your book value.
So I've seen this.
This credit accumulate depreciation will, because.
no, I know that,
Mhm.
I understand that,
Here, this will be book value will go down. About how much? About this difference.
So what I've seen in NRG, we have what's called a triggering event.
Mhm.
You have a power.
Yeah, okay, triggering event, that's a technical word. See, triggering, what are triggering event? That was my question, yes.
Okay, so an example, let's say the asset is a power plant, right? Its book value is $100 million, right? Its fair market value is $200 million, right? Different. The expected cash flow, the revenue you're gonna get for electricity is $150 million. It's less, so it's not making the money. So you gotta impair it, you gotta write it down. So you take that 50 million,
The
you throw it
50
here,
million will go here.
and that's the impairment.
and then you expense that to restructuring?
No,
This
this
is,
is.
this is a depreciation, but in this case, they have a impairment losses,
Yeah,
and that will go to
now, to,
correct accounting is a depreciation expense, but this will be either that impairment losses.
now that's not, if you put it in the context of the expenses we talked about, that's really not an operating.
Yeah, not operating expenses.
It's not recurring,
Mhm.
in depreciation. And the differences between GAAP and IFRS is significant. GAAP, you only go down, and that's it. Later on,
Right.
let's take that same asset, and maybe next year, electricity prices go up because of the commodities.
But you can't write it up.
You can't write it up. IFRS allows you to write it back up.
Allows that, up to that point, yes.
And the other thing I've seen with assets, okay, speaking of M&A, this is a little bit of sidebar thing. When you acquire something, when you have an M&A deal, those assets are now reevaluated. They go out and they say, okay, you have a thing on your books that's worth 100 million, but they have an appraiser go out there and he says, it's BDEP, it's only worth 90 million. You take that, you have a year to take that to IPIC, right? After that, you gotta eat that cost. So there again, the asset is being affected.
Now that's the one triggering event. What will the other triggering event? When this happens?
When you're in the fair market.
Like a relocation,
Relocation, EPA issue new standard, new emission standard. Look, emission standard has been upgraded. You can use this machine unless you invest $5 million to upgrade your machine,
May have something else.
right? If that is the case, law, new legislations, economic situations, relocation of major manufacturing plant to other places,
They changed that.
those are the triggering event, and that has to come here, and this has been used as one source of replacement for cookie jars. They revised this 121, later on 142 came out, and slightly, well, still, most of the accounting is in 121, 142, 143. They revised a asset write-down accounting. Those who have a new management changes, those who have a lot of leases, tend to take only a voluntary asset write-down, according to our research. We struggled, and this is not a target journal we were aiming for, but then we were able to get it out. This area has been abused as much as any other area of accounting. That motivates me and a son to do research. It was a good, fine result, was just not significant enough for big-time journals. So, make sense?
It does now, yeah. I don't know,
You're just trying to figure out why.
I have a
yeah,
comment, maybe a question. My company got bought out by the other one in Houston, right? So we had a fair market value and in their books, they had goodwill for the acquisition. It's a collection agency, there's really nothing to manufacture, it's just old computers and mostly goodwill at the time. Within that year, the management in Houston fired the smaller clients, and they took the larger clients that they had in common with them, like Citibank, for example, and they took it out of that one, my company, and put it into their books. So at the end of the year, they looked at what my company was making, which was much less than originally thought. So then at the end of the year, they impaired that acquisition,
okay.
because we definitely were not going to make, that name, Plaza Associates, was definitely not going to make the expected cash flows as of a year ago.
Gotcha.
See? Benefit of having classmates with tons of experience. Yeah. Real life
Tons of
experience, you know?
Go through this every year. It goes nuts, especially with all the gas and fracking going
Yeah,
on. It's like,
small businesses don't have this problem.
oh, then there's debates like, oh, we really don't wanna do the impairment, or we're doing this extent, because our segment's not gonna look good. It's like, okay,
See,
come on.
this becomes issue when you have to report this to SEC. When you don't have outside reporting liabilities, look, this is your account. You know? Nobody bothers you.
Exactly,
Yeah.
And
exactly.
here,
It's
so
your
many
money, man.
people
Make
have
sure,
stake.
you know, that's what we're talking about, you know, Fortune 500.
Good. I appreciate two examples here. I mean, this is a real life example that the textbook doesn't carry, you know?
That's why I'm here.
Now,
I
I have a
understand what
question,
they're
during the conversation with the auditor,
They don't
we were
tell
talking
you.
about the impairment,
They just kind of start talking
and
about
he
it.
said that you don't have to, you can wait until you actually do the financials, and then mid-year
They're not gonna
before
explain it.
starting your balances,
So now I know.
apply the impairment to retained earnings instead of the balance.
Watch out.
Look out, man. Mine's in-
That happened, impairment happened last year.
Is that kosher? Is that?
Yeah, prior period adjustment should be, adjustment to the beginning balance of retained earnings, that is a gap set. So the one you described is obviously 100% gap.
So it doesn't hit the income statement for the year because you're doing it after that in
If that condition was prior period, yes, that has to be beginning balance of the retained earnings. This period, income statement. See here, restructuring cost, employee, severance pay, relocation cost, asset write down. Prior period, arguably not as I has reported, and current period profit is not as low. In other words, there are three items that you have to watch out. Whenever there is accounting transaction, think about three different ways. And this will help you understand managerial motivation behind the deal. Timing, why now? Extent, nature. See, for every transaction, you ask, why now? What's different now than last year before? That explains great deal about the nature of the deal. Oh, this is a agency-related opportunistic a transaction which will maximize personal wealth of managers. This is purely motivated by financing constraints. In other words, they want to go to a brand new financing. This transaction purely designed for that new round of financing. How much? After you find out why now or why next year, why this much? That is why this much? Because this much will satisfy market expectations. Why this amount? Because this is a discretionary. If you have to go to board of directors and shareholders meeting, forget about it. You don't have time, everyone will find out all this discretionary cost is under my discretion. I don't need to ask any question. I just simply make a decision about the when I reduce my R&D, how much? Include items such as cost of vacating duplicative facilities. In other words, you are downsizing and then you are getting rid of a duplicative facilities to synchronize all these operations usually happen in a manufacturing environment, and contract termination fees, all subject to a source of a cookie jar in our terminology. FISA. How much accrual you have, employee termination cost, balance, and how much provision you have, and utilization for the year, and balance at the end of the year is this, and provision you add, and execution of this. So December 31st, 2012, we have 1.7 billion. Asset impairment has been done. Exit cost accrual, total accrual of 1.9 billion. 1.9 billion is in cookie jar. Here, this is a contingent liability, contingent upon future event. I guess most of them, pretty much, you're settled, but at the margin, management might have several $100 million discretion with respect to the disposition of this, settlement of this final. So contingent liability, restructuring liability, expense, reduced retained earning, income will be hit, and here you have to pay cash in order to settle this cash, the liability. You have to pay cash, accumulate for asset, accumulate depreciation, and restructuring liability. Total will go down by 2,041,000,000. My suggestion is this: when you read, especially asset intensive, capital intensive industry, this is a significant portion. And they have a specialized asset, so it's not our job to find out exactly what's going on with the asset utilization. It requires a specialized CPAs or trained people to find out the condition of the asset. It's not just one asset, it's just a class of different complex structure of the asset. It's not easy to from outside. The experienced CPA, 20 years, 30 years experienced CPA, I heard if they drive around a manufacturing facility, they know how much depreciation expense they see or management prepared a financial statement. In other words, they drive down, oh, this is a new price. They drive down Campbell Soup manufacturing facilities. I expect 30 million depreciation expense on management prepared income statement. When you get management prepared income statement, they say 22 million. Guess what? Your 30-year experience tells you 30 million, they say 22 million. You have to design extensive audit program to find out the difference between these two numbers, 8 million. Why they are trying to under a book their depreciation expense? Because of competition. Online shopping, they have been losing market share on a temporary basis. They try to cut down all the expenses, but then they already have assets. They change depreciation method all the way corner of the footnote. They say they change depreciation method this year.
Just a quick question to make up other people with their projects. Speaking of assets, and the topic is, you didn't might help other people with their projects, and the topic is assets
Mhm.
and the efficient use of them, real quick, okay? We wanna compare the assets that are, the operating assets to the income they generate.
Mhm.
So, I think in one of our earlier chapters, we talked about a ratio where you took the income divided by the asset base
Yeah.
to get an efficiency base. So, we wanna compare that to a competitor, a peer.
Mhm.
And, you know, that's kind of thing, does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, well, that perfect example would be in the morning we went over RNOA, no pet over average NOA will give you perfect
Yeah.
measure of that, how efficiently they are using their operating assets.
You know, in our case, it's power.
Yeah,
So we're gonna compare our power plant company to a peer, and say, you know,
and you can measure how old, on the average, how old their asset bases are, how strong their operating cash flow is, and whether they can replace aging asset by looking at their cash flow statement. What is the age of an asset from your balance sheet? How you measure age of the asset?
you take the depreciation expense and divide it into the basis.
See, yeah, here.
Oh, shit.
uh,
I'm glad you got me, right?
Accumulate depreciation, total historical cost, this is percentage used, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And what is the average years of estimated life for your asset? Average years? HC divided by annual depreciation expense. This will give you rough approximation of estimated life of the asset base. Hmm? So 1 minus this percentage used is left. 20% left. Operating cash flow is shaky. Bond market, they have not great credit rating. Stock is struggling. Everything is pointing one direction. Trouble.
Yeah, yeah.
That's usually what happens before they file bankruptcy. They weren't able to replace aging assets. And we can, how many items we need? Balance sheet and income statement. You can easily pick up this number from a face of the financial statement, and you can easily find out. And this is a really good measure for capital intensive industry.
Thank you.
Sure. Oops. Income tax. Income. See, once again, three most challenging accounting topics. Income tax, lease accounting, pension accounting. If you know these three topics, you can say you know US accounting. Because these three topics include all these challenging topics, including time value, money, estimations, assumptions. The problem of US accounting in terms of tax is this. IRS follow cash, we follow economic income. And there's a difference. See, there's a difference between cash income, which IRS will tax, economic income, which I will report on my financial statement. And that is two sets of reporting. See here? Necessarily because US tax code is different from GAAP. Tax code follow cash accrual base. Reconciliation between this and this is income tax accounting. Well, for the case of straight line depreciation as opposed to accelerated depreciation, depreciation expense will be accelerated to 200% here, and this straight line will go all the way straight because extracting the utility from using that asset is constant, and that justifies use of straight line depreciation. But new asset produce more, so according to matching theory, you have to match cost of using asset against the revenue you are generating from using that asset. So you are allocating more expense earlier years than later years. Total depreciation expense is the same, but since you are charging more to expense, which is a tax deductible, you will save tax here, tax, and expected amount of cash saving here can be reinvested in your operation. Therefore, you grow your business. That's why U.S. tax code allow this. You get early tax deduction, save cash, reinvest that saved cash into the operation. Otherwise, if tax and financial reporting use straight line depreciation, we don't have income tax account. This, we have to do this. This is the originating differences, reversing differences. Same, absolute amount of depreciation expense is the same. So here, since you get tax benefit first, you owe to pay tax later, so this will create deferred tax liability, as opposed to deferred tax asset. This deferred tax asset is came into your textbook 1996. Before 19, let me go slow. Before 1986. 86. This is a sign of age, you know? FASB 109, FASB 109, income tax accounting. I will say this, let me change. Late 1980s. I think I'll be more safe. Before that, we have nothing but what? A deferred tax liability. Why? Before that time period, we use income statement approach. We use income statement approach. In income statement, you have nothing but expense and liability. Expense and the other side is liability. So under income statement approach, you have nothing but deferred tax liability. But FASB changed income tax accounting from income statement approach to balance sheet approach. So now you have deferred tax liability as opposed to deferred tax asset. That creates a lot of problems. Yes. We know deferred tax accounting here, financial reporting, depreciation expense is this, but this is 150% accelerated depreciation. So 150% of this is 75. So expense is here. This is income before tax, and expense cash paid. How much is cash paid? And expense is a difference, and so that income is under 90 because you charge less depreciation. $15 difference is coming from $15 depreciation expense and $75. Therefore, you got tax benefit first, reporting higher income. That's why you owe taxing authority to pay back down the road, and that will create deferred tax liability. Deferred tax liability. The income tax rate multiplied by how much of a difference between tax reporting and financial reporting will be recorded as a deferred tax liabilities. Year two, you have what you might have much less, so you have opposite side. So either reverse and deferred tax liability will be offset prior $10. So that will be $0. You don't have because this is a 2-year asset. Income tax rate of 40%. So that deferred tax liability we find. Net book value of liability is less than financial reporting tax reporting. book value asset is greater financial reporting than tax reporting. We have asset, is the opposite side, asset. You pay tax first. In return, you have right to offset your future tax obligation because you pay tax first. Opposite side. Give me one transaction whereby you create deferred tax asset. Let me have a case where I gave the example of deferred tax liability, depreciation expense, financial reporting straight line, and the tax purpose, accelerated depreciation. When you create this deferred tax asset.
NOL, net operating loss?
Oh, net operating losses, yes.
We can cost correct for membership.
Oh, card membership, because you receive cash subscription first, you know, and then you have to pay tax for you didn't earn, but you have to tax first, right? Subscription revenue, NOL, net operating losses. Tax coming in first, pay tax first, but as you earn, you pay, you earn, okay, your tax deduction is coming up because you already paid tax upfront. That's a DTA. DTA problem. They create problems with this account. Brand new accounting. How many years carry back or carry forward? Right now?
Carry back 2 years and carry forward 1.
Exactly. 2 years back, 2 years ahead. Or the other alternative is 20 years ahead, right? Either you carry back 2 years, in which case you claim tax refund, and then still leftover can be applied next 20 years, or simply apply 20 years ahead. When you decide to just use the deferred tax asset for next 20 years.
When you don't have enough funds to offset your.
Yes, yes. You don't have any refund to receive, and you expect future tax rate to go up. Then it is your advantage to offset future tax obligation. So NOL is a typical item you have. Now NOL itself, a DTA idea was good. Problem is valuation allowances. I'll give you a similar example and compare this with valuation allowance. You have account receivable and allowance for doubtful account, and this is net realizable value of the account receivable, and this is you see in balance sheet, financial statement. Here you have DTA and valuation allowance, and this is a net realizable value of DTA. Conceptually safe. Conceptually. That is the problem. In other words, when you estimate allowance for doubtful account, it is your estimation, right? What is the credit entry for this? Bad debt expense. Debit debt and expense, credit allowance for doubtful account. And how much you put is based upon your past experience, industry average, if you don't have, adjacent industry average. GAAP says you have to use first past experience. If you're a brand new company, industry average. If you're first one in the industry, adjacent industry average for this, same rule. Now, how I know what will happen for the next 20 years? Here. Isn't it your call? How much I have to set aside? What is the FASB rule? When you set aside this, what kind of test do you have to use? FASB wording. If even is this, then you set aside as a valuation allowance. In other words, you have let's say $100 million DTA. If this happens, for this much, then your DTA will report this one. So this one 20 million debit, income tax expense, credit, valuation. Contract. What is the test basis wording? Basically wording for this setting aside $20 million.
When the future realization is uncertain? So,
Uncertain, but uncertain. That is their language. Uncertain. This is correct. But their language is. I'm sure you've heard about this. Uncertain is the correct word. Their language is more likely than more than 50%. More likely than not. If even we are not gonna be utilize these different tax assets, the chance is more likely than not. More than 50%, then this $20 million going through this test. Oh, 20 million, more likely than not. We're not gonna be able to utilize that the deferred tax asset. It's the projecting what's gonna happen next 15, 20 years. Guess what? Who make that decision? Random. How much income tax expense they did for this? How much income tax expense? Therefore, how much asset you record? Your discretion. Your discretion. Let's do this. At this point,
Thank you.
everyone has one copy? No? You got it? You have one copy? Good. Great. Yeah, I know I brought 15 copies. We'll analyze Dell over a 3-year period. After this, next year also, I'll make a handout. The problem with the Dell situation, we all know from a press coverage that Dell is not public corporation right now, and Dell is a private company right now. So here, I draw a timeline. 2012, 2011, they were struggling. Up to this point. In other words, Dell has been losing their market share to handheld computing, iPhone. They don't use less desktop. Not many people nowadays, other than schools and home office, we need a laptop and a smartphone. So they have been struggling here a lot. So management, Michael Dell was under heavy pressure to post target income to sustain their stock price. Then idea came here from Silver Lake Financing. Silver Lake, a private equity firm. You know, Michael, you don't want to deal with this stock and everything. Let's go to private. So here, Michael Dell private equity fund, they were trying to buy whole stock up from open market and go to private. Here, motivation up to this point, try to report higher net income, try to sustain their stock prices. Here, if they have to buy all their share outstanding, share price must have been, it's better to have stock price lower so that you pay lower dollar amount to buy whole thing up. Let's see how Dell will take a look at this one first. How they change their assumptions and estimations in financial statements. The reason why I download this financial statement is this. I read the Wall Street Journal article. Wall Street Journal article by going through this, fighting over how much they pay. And some investors are questioning their financial reporting practice. Oh, so I went to 10K, download, and print out this. Let me do some check. This is not on Facebook yet. I don't think anyone using this as a case. I just did a quick check to see, since motivation here is 180 degree different for managers, how they use financial reporting to advance their a personal benefit. I did this. So let's go to basic financial statement. Let's go to page 73. Fourth page. Go to financing receivable. Footnote. Financing receivable here. Footnote. See, I can't write this.
You could do, the board.
Okay, 2011 here. Financing receivable total growth here total. If you look at rewarding, fixed is less subject to the estimations of fixed. So if you have rewarding, financing receivable is 2.3896 billion, and your allowance percentage for losses, in other words, account receivable, financing receivable allowances. So a percentage for number one, percentage for a allowances here, 214 over 2,396. What percentage is? This is the financing receivable. What percentage they have?
9%.
9%, 8.93% to be exact.
Yep.
So let's do big number. So let's do this one. Okay. Year after that, let's see whether that is still is the case. In other words, this is the 2011 and 2012. Let's compute same a percentage here. Loss allowances and customer the receivable growth, and that is what percentage? 2.
8.54.
So that is 179 over 2,096,000, and that is 8.54%. They reduce percentage. What is the expected amount here? What is the expected allowances here? If you multiply last year percentage, well, situation hasn't been changed over here. Let's see what is the expected allowance this year. The expected allowance this year is 8.93% multiplied by 2,096,000. How much is it? 187 million. But how much they recognize? Allowances? They are supposed to recognize 187 expected, but the actual is 179 So $8 million lower allowance, $8 million lower expense, so $8 million higher pre-tax income. So let's do this. Here, one item, first item, financing receivable. I will do this. Here we have 2011 to 2012, 2012 to 2013. Now, number one, a financing receivable. Number one, financing receivable was to increase net income by changing assumption 8 million. And you say, look, that's the one case. I mean, this is the they have a genuine reason why they do this. Okay, fine. Let's go next page. Intangible asset. Everyone follows? Just stop me and asking questions here. How I got? This is the percentage of allowances. In other words, 8.93% will not be collected last year, but all of a sudden, a percentage has been improved. I can collect 8.54%. Difference between this and this multiplied by 2,096,000 will give you about $8 million lower expense. Lower expense is higher income. And that impact was 8 million here. 2012, idea here is to increase your net income as much as possible to sustain your stock prices. Let's go to a next page, intangible asset. Can I erase this? I have to. Okay. I'll erase this.
Not gonna use.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Oh, where's the spray?
See, I got carried away with that. This is it. Oh.
This the way you look. Yeah, there you go. I gotta bring my things.
Were you a Boy Scout?
Yeah, I was.
were?
I didn't make Eagle, but I was a
Okay,
Boy
all right,
Scout.
well, that's
But More
Be
importantly,
prepared.
I was an altar boy. So that was worse. And the nuns and the priests beat down on
I don't want to ask the question. I'm
So,
gonna-
Just leave it alone.
What's that?
Leave it alone.
I'm not gonna go there.
I'm in enough trouble with the sex.
Now, before I write anything, let me.
I don't know. I was wondering the same thing.
I want to do cultural diversity. How about you?
I think you chose it.
No.
Oh, he just signed
You
it.
signed it.
Oh.
I noticed that you go to gender. Yeah, good, Robin.
I'll use this one here.
So I punched the wall.
So intangible asset. Let's go to intangible asset. And here you have gross intangible asset and net.
All good.
Gross and net. Here, 2011 gross and net 1495 over 2183. So you say this is 68.5%. In other words, on the average, your intangible asset has a book value of 68.5%, and 31.5% has been amortized. So that was the 2011. But 2012, if you look at same ratio, 2012, that ratio became all of a sudden 1857 over 2936, and that is how much? 63.25%. All of a sudden, 2012, you say, oh, Am I right?
Wait a minute, one
We're
four,
looking at 2011,
we got 2012, right?
right?
How much is
149
this?
Where's the
Look at this one.
1495?
This is a 63.25.
And five.
How much?
Tangible.
I need the correct number here. Do this computation, 2011.
I'm just wondering where you're getting your numbers.
Where's the 1495? Very bottom, 68.5, yeah,
68.5?
yeah.
Okay,
We're
good.
taking net
Very
over
bottom.
gross, right?
Here we go.
Net of risk. Okay, so how much is the expected here? 2012.
Yep.
1857 over 2936. How much?
That's right,
This is right?
yes.
Okay, good. Now,
2936 times 68.
So you're gonna use the 2011 factor
this factor, and here.
over 2012.
What is the expected amount of a net value? In other words, amortization expense. If you apply 60.5% here, how much is the expected amount of amortization, and how much intentionally they reduce the expense here?
So if I take the 20.
2011, it should be.
2011.
Mm.
2011 is the supposed to be amount. How much they are recording? 1857. They are recording 1587. How much is the difference?
It's the 2936
Yeah.
times the 68.5.
Okay, I got 16, oh, I must have,
2011.6, right?
Fuck them.
Yeah.
So how much the difference?
last year.
180,
154.
154.
Okay.
154.
In other words, all of a sudden they say our intangible has more value. Our intangible has a more value, and that intangible asset, that asset had $154 million approximation. We have to dig in their book, but according to the disclosure they have, this is the case. Number 3, next page. Next page, here, we'll go to next page, and we'll see whether this a trend continues.
154.
Next year, you have, we just covered valuation allowances here, valuation allowance. 2011 valuation allowance is here. Total deferred tax asset is valuation allowance is 72 over 1473. See how much they have? 1,473 valuation, the total deferred tax asset. They say 72% is a valuation allowances. More likely than not, it will not be utilized. So how much is it? What percentage is it?
4.89.
4.89%. Well, 2012, that is 73 over 1.6 million. And this percentage is 4.56. All of a sudden, they say our valuation allowance is we're more optimistic about valuation allowances. Optimistic? They're struggling. They were struggling big time. This has to go up, but then they went down. So 16 multiplied by 4.89 minus 4.56, this will give you difference.
5 million.
5 million, above 5 million, decrease, expense, increase, income, okay. Valuation allowances, how much? 5 million. What is the coincidence? Look, this can happen. This is just coincidence. What is the probability of a 3 item heading one direction? 1/2 to the power of 3?
12.5%.
1/8? 12.5% chance? We'll see. Next item. Next item. Number 4 is the next page.
93?
Account receivable. Well, we all know account receivable allowance that allowance for doubtful account.
That one
here.
sticks out.
So account receivable. Let's do this. If this goes our way, then 2011 96 over 6589 and 2012 63 over 6539. Without computation, you slash your allowance for doubtful account by 50%.
Mhm.
So this percentage is a 1.46. In other words, you say, oh, almost 95% we collect. Here you say, this is 0.96%. 0.96%, 1.46%. Now, all of a sudden they say, we are collecting what percentage? More than 99%. What is the difference? Well, 6539 multiply 146 minus 0.96 percentage, and that will give me how much?
32.5.
Hmm?
Like 32.5 million difference.
32?
Oh, I did the final.
32 million? Because this is the 0.5%, right? 0.5 of this is 0.5, yeah, half of this, 32, yeah. Yeah. See, 0.5. $32 million. So number 4, account receivable, same direction, 42 million. We are increasing everything, right? Up to this point. What is the pure chance for even if we had one direction? 1 over 16?
6.25%.
6.25%. So, okay, that's still a possibility. So let's go one more item. To make sure. I will see this approximately to see whether they made depreciation change. Now, if you look at total here, 4.7 and accumulated depreciation of this 2011 2776 over 4729. That's 0.587. So what is this percentage mean? We just covered it. 58.7%. How you interpret it? They use 58.7% of their asset on the book. So they depreciate how much? 41% something. This is it. All of a sudden, 2012, they say, what percentage you have? 28.10 over 4934. This is 56, 50, yeah, 56.95. Above? How much?
Down at PP&A. It's on the same page.
Okay, so expected amount is the difference between this amount multiplied 4934 approximation. We don't know exactly. You know, they have different class of asset everywhere. Huh? $86 million. Great. So here, PPE, $86 million one direction to increase income. Now, I did this simply based upon big item from financial statement. I didn't dig into other detailed footnote, just big item from financial statement and footnote. These 5 items. Let's go to next year. Next year, motivation is what? You pay less money, and you have to suppress your stock prices, right? So what do you expect here?
Decreases in income, but increases.
We'll see whether they did that. In broad daylight. In broad daylight, here.
Ah.
Okay.
I'm missing the ordering class. I'm losing Professor King, between this and ordering class, I'm losing all the respect for accounting and ordering statements.
Or I'm hoping like,
Subjective
I
idea.
just don't want to paint too pessimistic view of
You got
this
till 1 o'clock.
noble professions, you know?
Noble.
This,
I know.
this profession has been around for more than 500 years,
an art
and
form.
respected business. Now this is a current status of account.
You know, I'm a professor. Professor Stein, he's a finance professor, right? And he said, well, what's accountants? We're all against the higher quantity.
That's my best. Next one. I would say this would be really pessimistic, really extreme case of financial reporting, but this is what you're facing. This is a big firm, small, medium-sized firm will do their accounting this way, depending upon their motivation and incentive. Here, let's check same amount next year. If we find out direction opposite way, we have a case. Now let's go to this one is this one. Let's go to 2013 and a fifth page, page 78 from that page. Here, we did these computations. So we already know 2012 percentage, right? We already compute this one, right? So if you have a record, 2012 we had 8.54%, right? We already compute this one over this one, and let's compute this one. 2013, where now your motivation is management buyout, MBO. Under MBO, you have to pay current market price to buy out. And the lower the stock price, the lower amount you need to come up with. So here, 2013, that same ratio will be 169 over 1834. What percentage you have?
9.7.
All of a sudden, they became pessimistic.
What it should be, 180.
And the difference between this and multiplied by how much? 1834 here, 1834. That gives you how much?
16, wow.
And,
Difference between these two percentage.
12 million, 12 million, right?
This is a slight less than 1%, so slight less than the 18 million. So 18 million, so it will be
1066.
about 12 million.
Yeah, 12.28.
Yeah.
12 million, okay, 12 million.
Down. Up in
In this
expense.
case,
Up in expense. Down in
expense went up this much, therefore income went down by 12 million. So now, for financing receivable, 12 million down. Let's do same example. Let's do same example. Next page. All the way bottom. dramatic turn